so amazing. That anything works is amazing. I love when things are 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglash for the Wisconsin DMA. We search the world for good marketing ideas every day. I had a really interesting conversation yesterday with Dan, and he's got this really great project that I'm really excited about, and B2B, and looks like there's some application for mail, yeah, but there may be, heck, LinkedIn ads might be the way to go. There's a lot of things that could work, and I was trying to explain that how you set it up in the beginning is the laboratory. It's the launch, but in the ad world, which I was in for a couple of years, you'd try to guess it right, maybe ask some customers, maybe not, maybe there was focus groups, maybe there was some research, but then you'd launch the whole thing. Like I worked with IBM and Gray Direct Advertising, and they asked me, they wanted to do a catalog. Okay, so for IBM, and they said, how many businesses are there in America? And I said, well, give or take 10 million, but if you include the little ones, probably 14 million. And they said, okay, well, how much does it cost to do a catalog? And I said, let's say $1, round numbers. They said, you mean for a measly $10 million, we can reach every business in America? I said, well, probably yes, but that's not the way I would do it. The way I would do it would be some testing and roll out and scale up. And I said, just for example, what if people really like it and you get overwhelmed? And they said, oh, that's not our job. Our job is just operation, or just the marketing. Operations promises that no matter how many calls we generate, we'll take care of it. They'll take care of it. And what happened was they were sold out of everything and within about 2 days. And, they couldn't answer the phones fast enough. And it was just a complete operational disaster. But the marketing people could have worked that out. So what I was explaining was that's what do I bring to the table when I work with companies? What I bring to the table oftentimes is thinking beyond the marketing, thinking about the marketing, thinking about the different media choices, but how to make those work together, how to test and roll out, how to launch so that we learn the most possible that we can to go forward. And after about an hour, I kind of, explained that, but he said, I watch your show and, it's mostly about direct mail and how direct mail is a key. Well, direct mail is a key, and I wouldn't probably launch much without having a direct mail component, because there's some elements of data that you get from mail that you don't get from other media. That doesn't mean that that's the only medium in the world. It's bigger than that. And so, I've been saying, why don't you give me a call? If you've got a marketing puzzle, if you've got slow growth or competitive pressure or margin erosion, because of inflation or whatever, those are the kind of puzzles I've worked on for 40 years. And I'm now in the process of documenting the 28 companies that I've dramatically accelerated and changed their valuation by multiples. And if you're interested in that, especially if you're a CEO or a CFO, that's where I really like. That's where I like working with somebody who's keeping track. That's maybe my main thing in my career. I didn't work with a lot of financials. I didn't work with a lot of mass media advertisers because they couldn't tell what was working and what wasn't. Now you can put that together. You can figure out ways to do it. So anyway, give me a call if you have a nice marketing puzzle, and oftentimes I can accelerate your growth. Let's get over to the news. Okay, this is from Adland and Yorkshire Tea. It's a going away party, and they took one of their own, Sir Patrick Stewart, my favorite Star Trek captain, Jean-Luc Picard, which is funny because, he has a British accent, but he's supposedly from France. Star Trek is a funny world. But let's see what he does with Yorkshire tea.
Before you go,
Whoops.
Patrick has a few words.
Patrick has a few words for you. You got to turn on the right button there. There we go. Okay, here we go. Patrick, it's a going away party, and Patrick has a few words for you as you retire.
Where's Patrick?
Ah, Tina. The void so hollow that you shall leave. The emptiness felt within these walls, where only the soft weeping of the forgotten reverberates. Shall we not hear again the enchanting echoes of your laughter, or the sweet rasp of your stapler? We must and will continue. Our love, our dreams, our wishes ride with you, fair Tina. And we're having a pint at the Dog and Trumpet after work. Apparently there's a tab behind the bar.
Yorkshire tea, where everything's done proper.
They got a tab behind the bar. I don't think they're going to drink just Yorkshire tea. But anyway, apparently Sir Patrick is from Yorkshire. Yorkshire? Probably they say Yorkshire. And that's a lot of fun, and I really like that. So that's how we start most days, with something that's a little bit fun. And now we got to get over there. No matter where I am in the world, I always make sure to have some Yorkshire tea with me for a proper brew. My career has taken me from West End to Broadway, from Hollywood to the far ends of the galaxy. But now I've returned to where it all began, Yorkshire. Okay, well, that's fun. Okay. Here's something that I didn't know much about: the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act. And this is a sort of an add-on to the GDPR legislation from several years ago, which that was primarily about data. This is almost geared toward, what do you do with the data? What are you allowed to do with data? Which is another entirely different kettle of fish. And there's been a lot of drafts, and now we finally have a final text here that we can look at, and it has some potential for impact. First of all, targeting of minors would be banned. Now, what's interesting to me is that in the beginning, there was suggested or proposed a total ban on the use of personal data in targeted advertising. And that's really kind of stunning. Now, what exactly targeted advertising is? Often these things don't include mail, partly because governments collect postage. As a printer from Canada pointed out, why the mail is almost always excluded from these. And so if you want compliance, one of the ways is to use mail, and especially if you have a long-standing tradition of mail. See, I do put mail in here. I'm not opposed to mail. Okay, but such clauses never made it through the committee. But a proposal to ban the profiling of minors for advertising purposes has included. Providers of online platforms shall not present advertising on their interface based on profiling using personal data of the recipient of the service when they are aware with reasonable certainty that the recipient of the service is a minor. And of course, here's the problem. How do you know they're not a minor? The truth is, you have to know about every one of your target audience to know which ones are minors and which ones aren't. That's what segmentation is about. And so it means that you have to have a source of such data. And how do you get it? If you ban the use of sensitive data. And so here's also the use of sensitive data includes racial, ethnic origin, political opinions, religious or philosophical beliefs, health, and sexual orientation. Okay, so when I first started with buying from Amazon back a long time ago, they asked me, what kind of stuff am I interested in? And I said, well, I'm interested in it's, what have I bought from them? And I'd bought Christian books and I'd bought hunting books. And so I couldn't put hunting because there wasn't a category. They just had outdoor. And I couldn't put Christian because they had just spiritual stuff. And so, I was then offered Eastern mystical creation myth books. It was sort of outdoor Gaia. It wasn't that far off, I suppose, compared to books on soccer, but it was, almost 180 degrees different than what I was kind of looking for. So again, you have a problem with ruling these out without having them, right? So you can't use these to profile. But what if you sell religious books, right? Wouldn't that tell you these things and whether you meant to have it or not? Okay, but you're not allowed to specifically. It specifically outlaws its use. How do you categorize your items, right? And more transparency and dark patterns. You can't trick people into ordering. You can't trick people into giving consent. And like Google does, buries the stuff down in the additional information under that and hides it. And if you don't click there, then you are giving consent. And the Digital Marketing Act, the DMA, is specifically aimed at the biggest of the online giants. Okay, and they have to keep records of all the ads they do. And it's not exactly clear how that's going to be implemented. But I want to get over to Ritson, and this is an excellent article. And again, all the articles every day are down in the show notes at wdma.org. I encourage you to go over there and subscribe. It hasn't been a big rush. Subscriptions are limited. There's no charge, but then you can look at the show notes every day. And so he was asked to do a speech for Savanta, which is a market research company apparently, and he was supposed to talk about their 2022 Most Loved Brands Award, okay, which I think Cadbury won in the UK. But if you just mention the words brand love, everybody groans because they don't believe that there's any brand love around. And yet in the late 90s, there was brand love was everywhere. Everybody talked about how you could get consumers to move from, early adopters, testers to, people that were loyal to being evangelists for your brand. And then there was Havas published global research in 2007 that said most people would not care if 74% of brands disappeared. And I've always been a kind of a not care that much about brands, I don't think, And Ritson says, okay, so which 74%? And he said, I don't care about diet drinks, nappies, or tampons. And I'm not even sure what nappies are. So maybe it's depends. I don't know. Or diapers, I suppose. Okay, so let's start thinking about the 26% that people do want to keep. I read an interesting article from the Hustle yesterday about C's chocolates and how Mary C's she ran a hotel, but she'd spent a lot of time in the kitchen, and she was always tinkering with her candy recipes that she would give to the guests. And then her son moved to LA. She was in Michigan, I think. And then she perfected the C's candy. And then her son, I think, lost his job and started selling candy. And he decided that the best candy he could sell was his mom's. And so they got going, and they never skimped on quality. This was back in the 20s that they got going. And then the Depression hit, and they decided that and World War II, where they couldn't get enough ingredients, and they did their best to source the ingredients they wanted, but they didn't want to make it without the Ozark walnuts and the Georgia pecans, I guess. I think it was Georgia or Texas pecans. Anyway, and so excellent story of See's, and it's one of the Berkshire Hathaway investments, and Warren Buffett it's his favorite one. It's always grown slowly, but it's always grown, and it just is about quality. And they tried to reduce their SKUs. They tried to eliminate some of the lesser selling types of candy, and they basically got hate mail. They said, we hope you roast in your own kettle with a sprig of holly in your chest. And apparently some of they proposed a class action suit to get back these certain items, certain kinds of candy that See's had been making, and so they put them back in. And the point was that brand love was what carried this See's chocolates along, and so they didn't skimp on ingredients. But after Berkshire Hathaway got started with them, they were able to raise their prices, and they raised them 10% a year for 10 years, and basically doubled their prices. And sales would go up because the amount of money you got for the chocolate, but the doubling was in the price per pound, and yet there was such brand loyalty that they kept on going along. And so the gist of what Ritson is saying here is that we've thrown away the baby with the bathwater. We need to remember, and Aaron Bass basically said, it's all about salience, it's all about creating action. There was no room for something as soft and emotional as love, and yet there is love. And not only is there love, but they surveyed 200,000 people. I love this. Avoid focus on either head or heart at the expense of the other, because if we've learned anything over the last century of persuasion research, it's that the two are intertwined conceptually as they are biologically. Yes, we are an integration. When head and heart conflict, heart usually wins. That's true. But that doesn't mean there isn't a connection between what you think about and what you love, as he points out. And he said, oftentimes the studies that ask this question segment and break down what does love feel like? And you say, well, it's a warm feeling. Okay. Well, how is love different from sitting next to a heater on a cold day? And they try to take it into its component parts. And fortunately, Savanta doesn't do it that way. They measure sort of overall pleasant feelings toward a brand. And the number one brand is Cadbury's. Cadbury is now the most loved brand in the UK. But what's interesting is that he gets into the segmentation down at the bottom. Facebook isn't there. Facebook isn't even in the top 100. And yet I go on Facebook for certain things. Their B groups are excellent. Lots and lots of B groups. Now, the advice you get on different B groups is almost 100% contradictory. So take that with a grain of salt. But there's a lot of people who raise bees and are harvesting honey and having a good time out there. Okay, not only that, but because they asked 200 people for their opinions on brands they love, they can segment without undermining the confidence intervals, he says, in not so few words. And he says one of the funny things is that women in the UK love Fairy dish detergent. And if he said that it's a woman thing and they love Fairy dish detergent, he said, I wouldn't get out of this alive. But the data doesn't lie. Fairy is one of the most loved brands in Britain for women. Doesn't even show up on the male list. Males like PlayStation. He says, what a fantastically depressing insight into modern gender roles. And one of the first things I learned when I started using geodemographic variables, census data and stuff, was that birds of a feather flock together. and there was something to the stereotypes. Down in the deep South, not everybody graduated high school. It's just the way it is. And you don't have to. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You can make it through life, but up here, there's all kinds of racist and geopolitical sort of suspicions we have that bear themselves out in the data. He says there's a great difference between Scotland and Northern Ireland compared to London. He says up north they like their Fanta, which is our orange soda, and Iron Brew, as well as Cadbury's. That's where they love their candy up there. But there isn't one candy in London mentioned. They prefer Evian instead. And so he says, give me my Galaxy Bar, cream egg, and a 10-hour binge on Netflix, and you can enjoy your Evian and jogging in your Nike trainers, you southern wankers. As usual, Ritson is colorful, let's just say. So well thought out. Get over to WDMA.org and get a copy of the marked up article, which will be there shortly. Have a great day. Like and share. Give me a call. Share. Yesterday I got some likes on the article. I thought they must not have listened to the end. So give it a share. Likes are worthless almost on LinkedIn. Give it a share.